What we're going to go over is we're going to go over Sequence Kinetics SCE Edition, which is Sequence CRM Edition. So basically what I want to cover now is why we would use Sequence Kinetics SCE Edition over Microsoft Dynamics built-in workflow. Well, the picture that you're looking at right now here is a picture of a complex workflow which we find many times when we go into customers. And what we're looking at is there's two sets of errors. There's a red set of errors and there's a black set of errors. And this is input and output of data that normally needs to be integrated into some type of solution within an organization. These red and black lines usually represent an enormous amount of dollars that people are going to spend to get customization done to Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So what we're trying to do is provide you with a solution that's going to allow you to integrate with intelligent messaging, web forms, back-end systems such as financial ERP system or warranty systems. We're also going to allow you to add MI and BI into it, be able to create contacts and account and orders. So the middle of all this is Sequence SCE Edition. So what it's going to do is allow you to have business process management that's going to give you governance and control over the entire process. Now we know that we have workflow within Microsoft Dynamics CRM, but we know that can be limited, and as I said before, that you see those red lines and black lines are integration points usually into CRM that cost an enormous amount of money, and you usually end up getting no reusability out of it. So what Sequence Kinetics is going to provide you with the ability to be able to integrate all your different systems, as I said again, from intelligent messaging to back-end systems to web forms, and provide that governance and control that you're able to be able to provide to your end user customers and have reusability of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into Microsoft Dynamics. So if we go to Microsoft Dynamics and we go to the home page, the first thing you're going to see is we're going to see a sequenced workflow dashboard. And what this is it's showing you MI and BI information about what's going on with the process. You can see over here, we've got a number of workflows for type. We can look at an instance number of sequence workflows based on a certain date. We can look at inactive versus active. And over here, we can see we have two that are in the order submission stage. And as we go through, these charts will be dynamically updated using Sequence in the back end, so the end-using customer that's within Microsoft Dynamics CRM doesn't ever have to leave this particular software program to go out and do anything. All the information is provided right there. In addition to having these charts, the top-end management can then get an overview of what's going on without having to go into any back end and not even knowing the Sequence is running in the back end. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go in and we're going to open up another page. And as we talked about being able to integrate into web pages, this is our little pseudo customer called Whiteway Whiteboards. And what it is we're going to have an external customer go to this site. This could be a link from your portal. It could be a direct site that comes up as they want to place an order. And what you can see here is we have in the middle is an HTML5 form. This form is generated out of Sequence Kinetics SCE Edition. So you can see that we have now a very simple web-based form that we can actually add information to, and the customer in the back end can just go along and fill out the information. So we're going to fill out some information here. So we fill out some basic information here, and then we're going to say next. So we have a nice seamless set of screens that go through. Here we're going to put in a company name so we can gather all this information, number of employees, fill out some other information, everything we need, state and province. So you can see here that we have many useful controls. We can just fill this in. You'll see another control later. Put a country or region and fill out a phone. So we fill out all the information. Then the customer goes to the next page. He says next. When we get to this page, we can see a grid control. Again, we showed you some of the useful features. This is a very powerful control that's in Sequence. It's out of the box. You can configure to use it. So you can see here as we want to add a product, we're just going to click on here and say add a product. If we go down here, we can see we have a list of 3 different products. If we jump back over here into our Microsoft Dynamics CRM and take a look, we can actually see that those products are actually driven out of this product information. You can see you have Blackbirds. We could add another product here and it would show up. So you can see that information and list items maintained in the CRM system will be used and exposed up to the front end to the customer. So as this list grows, you don't have to worry about resetting the actual workflow itself. It'll just adhere to and take whatever is in this particular active product list and display it to the customer. So we're going to jump back over here, and we're going to say we're going to add a whiteboard. We're going to add one, maybe one installation. We do an insert. And we'll add one more product here. We'll add Blackboard, digital Blackboard. We'll say we need two of them. We need both installation and training, and we do insert. You can see this powerful grid control keeps tabular format of everything that's going on, total sum of 3. You could edit and delete this. Once the customer is done with the information, they're going to hit finish. Now, they submitted this information, and what's going to happen now is we'll revisit this, is they're going to get set information. So if we go in, we say this is done now. We've given the back-end user, thank you, your order's been received. We'll be receiving an email with further. We're now going to go back into Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and we're going to go to the home page. And we can see here now that we have actually two things here. We have 2 submitted and 1 qualification, because we had a prior person that was working on something else and it went forward to qualification, and we now have 2 order submissions. We can look at the detail of this information. By drilling down, you can see we have right here is that new account here, that's 7647 for EVC. These are just a couple of new accounts that actually were set up. So once they're all set up, we can look at this. If we go now here to sales and we say what's new, we're going to notice that we've updated a number of entities here. We have a potential new order, and if you see here 7647, we have a new order. We've created a new account, and we've also created a new contact. So we've updated Dynamics key stage metrics you saw on that the former chart. We've created a new account, the company. We've created a new contact and associated that contact with the account. So if we go into the account here and click on that, you're going to see that we've associated the contact. Here's our address. Here's the contact over here information. So we associated. We created a task which would go into Outlook. If you have Outlook plug-in, you would actually see a actual task that's built into Outlook. And we've actually created the opportunity. So if we go back to the very beginning, what's new, we can actually look at the opportunity. So we'll look at the new opportunity here, and there's a potential new order. Okay, so we see all the information now. So what's going to happen now is, again, the people are still within the organization. But the grid, as you remember, the grid that we had pulls directly from the CRM and that products order. If we update it or change it, that would automatically reflect in the order and push it. We have the live metrics showing the website activity. Again, if we go back to the main page, we can look at this, and we can see we show the live activity. So what we're going to do now is we want to take a look at is what's going on with the particular account. So let's go back to what's new. And we're actually going to go into the account. We're going to click on here, Sequence Workflows. We're going to see we have our customer onboarding for EVC. We'll click on that. And we're going to come over here and click on Workflow Status. So here we are. It's something new that you've not been able to see in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Is we're showing you an actually live view, as we refer to it in Sequence, of the workflow itself. So we can see this customer onboarding for CRM 2013 for EVC Inc. And you can see we're showing you the different swim lanes here, showing Sequence Kinetics down here with SLAs watching over the entire properties. Remember I talked about governance control. We now sit there and watch, put a timer up for when the CFO needs to approve it to keep within the company's, SLA to the end customer. And then at the end, we're going to close different processes based on a timer to make sure that nothing gets left out there. So there may be processes that actually end that don't have any further activity, and we want to make sure they get closed down. So if we go up to the top here, we can see we submitted and we created some updated entity stage. This is where we update the MI and BI information in that main stage. We presented the end user with a order form. Once we get done, we're going to send out a thank you note. We'll visit the email in a minute. We're going to go through this again. We're going to update the entity stage. We're going to go through here when you saw we created a contact, we created an account, we updated the name, created the opportunity, we created a task, and we associated each with the other based on the work back-end done in Sequence Kinetics. We're now sitting here at this opportunity closed listener. So what has happened now is that we've actually, in the beginning, we came to a web form and we actually kicked off a process based on an end user customer going to that web form. That kicked off a process and it went through a number of steps within Sequence. Now that we've gotten to this point where we're waiting now for something to happen within Microsoft Dynamics CRM, we have this listener that's sitting here waiting for somebody within CRM to actually take action upon that new opportunity that came in. So Sequence will now sit here and wait for somebody to take action within Microsoft Dynamics CRM and say either won or lost the account, and based on that, we'll go through different steps. So what's going to happen is once that opportunity is closed, it'll now pass control back over to Sequence. When we do that, we're going to go out there and we're going to do a credit check. We're going to go in and update the entity, say we're going to credit check. We're going to go outside and call web service. The return value of the web service is going to make a decision based on whether we need to either automatically approve it, the CFO needs to take a look at it, or we automatically reject it. And this is based on a number that's calculated based on the number of employees and returning a credit score and other information. Now, this web service could be anything that you need to call or bring into the system. It could be an external system. In this case, we just call out to do a credit check. In this case, what we're going to do is we set it up so the CFO will require approval. With this approval, I'm going to show you two different avenues of being able to access this without going into CRM. We're going to show you what's called one-click, which is going to allow the CFO to go to his email and actually approve, decline, or ask for more information. Or we're going to go to our online mobile solution process to go and show how it shows up there. Once the CFO approves this, we're going to go through a number of entities down here. We're going to onboard the customer, set that BIMI again. We're going to call out to an ERP system, update the account number, create a warranty system, and go through a number of other things to create the order, and at the end notify the end user customer that it's been successfully. After we actually approve from the CFO, this whole system from this end to this end will complete automatically, so that's why I wanted to go over this right now so you understand that as we go and the CFO approves, it's going to be approved, it's going to go through and create all this called the external systems, and do this all automatically right for the end. Again, passing control back and forth from Sequence to CRM, back to Sequence, and then back to the CRM at the end. So we're going to go down here real quick and look at our email and go for today and do a send receive, and we should have received. You can see right here that we've created a nice intelligent message that we sent back to our customer that filled it out. It said, "Dear Anthony Robinson, your order has been received." Now this intelligent messaging is really nice because we're getting information. You could get any information from that you've gathered within Sequence or other information within the CRM system and intelligently notify. Notice nobody had to send an email. All of this is bound and controlled within the process itself and will always be there for auditing. So you can see we've assigned a username and a password. You can review the process, and we will send intermittent updates based on where we are within the process. So what do we do now? So what's going to happen is the end user is going to go back to what's new again, and we're going to take a look at the opportunity. So we open up the opportunity, we look at this, and they're going to make a decision on what's going to happen. In this case, as you know, we're always going to close it as one. So close as loss really doesn't do anything. We just always move in a forward thing. So we're going to click as close as one. So they're very happy that they've won the account. They're going to put in some dollar amounts here and say, "Good job. This order out." And we're going to say OK. So now the opportunity has been won, and we're going to sit here and we're going to go, and we should now sit there. If we go back real quick, as I said, we're going to look at the particular account, and I'm going to show you that we've advanced forward now and we should be sitting at the credit check itself, as we talked about how we pass the control back from CRM back to Sequence to allow it to move forward. So we'll go here and we'll look at Sequence workflows, click on the workflow, and click on status. So now, as I had mentioned, remember we're sitting here at this opportunity close listener. Well, we saw that the person went in that was requiring their work and sat and actually did what they had to do, and they actually closed it as one. So after we closed it as one, we can say we went into the next phase. We started the credit check. We updated the entity, which I'll show you in a minute. We're at the credit check now, and we're now sitting here at the CFO waiting for his approval. And again, once we do the approval, the rest of this process will continue and finish automatically. Go out, get the ERP warranty system, update the CRM, and then contact the end user. So what we're going to do is go real quickly back to the main screen, take a look. You're going to see that the graphs have updated the stage. We're now sitting here. We have 2 order submissions. We have 1 credit check that we're sitting down here, so you can see that we've moved forward. So we dynamically can show the end user or any of the higher management what's going on with processes coming in from an external source, such as a website or a link that fires off the information. So now, typically the end user, if we go back in here, and we talked about how the end user always wants to be able to be contacted about what's going on. So we'll go in here, we'll do an update real quick, send and receive. And we can see now our CFO, who typically doesn't go into the CRM system, needs to approve stuff. So this is what we call sequence one-click. This is basically we set up an email that can have a number of buttons on it. In this case, we have 3 buttons. These are fully configurable within the sequence product to say what you want, and based on what each one of these buttons is required to do, we'll push the workflow. As you remember, approve as a low risk, high risk, or reject. So remember that branch that we had on the CEO. So you can see again, we've got an intelligent message. We've got EVC here, number of employees, and credit score. Again, intelligent messaging, key here because we're taking information both out of the CRM system and from the information that was gathered from the web forms and being able to intelligently push it back to the customer or the CFO in this case to tell them what's actually going on. Well, we're not going to prove this right now because I want to show you another entity within Microsoft Sequence called Process to Go. This is our mobile solution offering. And remember, this is 7647. We talked about that process. So as this loads, this is available on any mobile device, operates in any browser. It's HTML5 based. As we load up, we'll be asked to log in. So Tom will log in. And as he signs into his portal, we're going to be presented with, here we go, customer onboarding right here. You can see we have very full feature set. We have an inbox. There's our customer onboarding. We can look at processes. We have the capability here if we wanted to start a new process, we could. We could look at reports. We can show transactions per second. We can show workflows per status. Again, very full-featured integration. Mobile, works on iPads, Android, Windows, Mac. So let's go back to the home, and if we look at this, if we click on this now, again, we're going to be presented with basically the same thing again. We can see there's our customer information, number of employees, 326, and regards. Again, you can see the same button, so if we put these side by side, you can see it's a same consistent message, whether it goes into the email or whether it goes into the online or mobile version of Sequence. In this case, we're going to approve as a low risk. We're going to get an indication back that it's been approved. And what's going to happen is, you remember in the workflow itself, it's going to do a number of processing in the back end. Again, create the account, put the account number associated with it, and a number of other processes. You can say we've been successfully submitted. We're going to close this down. We're going to close this down. We'll go back to our main page, refresh our home page. You're now going to see that we've advanced past. That credit check is done now. Well, as we have is the 2 order submissions. If we go into the sales, we can go back here and we can say what's new. We know the opportunity has been updated. We can go into EVC itself. Going to notice here now that we've assigned an account number. So now we have an AX101106. So we've gone through the system and updated the account. And if we go over to, we go back into the actual workflow here, EVC, and we say look at sequence workflows. As we expect, the workflow should be finished. No, as we said, it would complete through the end, finish all the processing that needed to do. So I've shown you here that we've updated the account number. We've updated the MIBI in the front to show that it's been processed. And the final thing I'd like to show you is I'm going to go in here and actually go and do send receive. And you can see that we finally sent out an intelligent message at the end, giving the person the order number, their new account number. We went out and got that warranty from the warranty system. And again, we've updated their information and given them the information that they need to provide to the end customer. All of this happened automatically in the back end. So you can see what I showed you is we were giving the capabilities to the external customer to go to a website and start entering information. That information that they saw on that website could be based on information found within CRM, such as drop-downs, location, or anything like that. Once that information was submitted, We went into the CRM, notified the end user customer that the order has been received and will be processed. We waited for the opportunity, passed the control back over to Microsoft Dynamics CRM, waited for something to happen within CRM to say either won or lost. Once that account was lost, we went and moved it forward to do a credit check. The credit check was done, waited for a CFO approval because we based it on a number that would require the CFO. I showed you that we can use either what the process we call one-click, which is an email, allowing the CFO not to have to worry about going to CRM, or I showed you the process to go, which is our mobile solution offering within Sequence Kinetics. We approved the process. Once the process was approved, we went out there and did a number of other tasks that were passed back over to Sequence Kinetics. We called out into the warranty system. We updated the account number. We updated all the entities within Microsoft CRM to reflect the new account number and warranty information, and we completed the order. So what I want to show you, just go over one last slide here. So what happened between SCE and Microsoft Dynamic Touchpoint? So over here we have the entities. What we saw is we saw the creation and maintenance of entities within the BPM process. Okay? We saw the handover between Microsoft CRM and Sequence and back and forth. So we can stop and start the workflow based on activities going in within CRM or within activities going with Microsoft. So we saw the power of CRM integrated within the BPM process. And it makes it very fast to develop these entities, which I'm going to show you in a minute. On the user interface side, we saw the MIBI stuff, very easily used vocabulary within the CRM system that you're used to. Again, the visibility of the MI and BI dashboard, you saw it dynamically updated by Sequence Kinetics, and you saw it consuming and using that information so upper management could constantly be aware of what's going on from an external source and that governance control. And then on the other side, if we go in, we talk about the plugin. It's the interaction between the solution that allows Microsoft Dynamics and SCE to talk to each other, to be able to stop and start the process. And now I'm going to go into the development environment, show you very quickly how we implemented this process using pre-built entities or using pre-built functions, as we call them, to allow the touch points between CRM and Microsoft CRM and SCE. So we're going to jump back in now. I'm going to close this down, and we're going to go into the administration portal of Sequence. So we're going to log in. And this is where you actually build out and control Sequence in the back end. We allow you to bring in Active Directory and edit your organization to be able to use, authoritative structures within Active Directory. You can get help, tutorials, building workflows, and you can see what edition you're using. On this side, we're going to come over here and look at the workflows. You can see that we have the CRM 2015 workflow, and we can see that we have here our customer onboarding. We have the capabilities of versioning it, so as you work on it, different processes, you can have an active version, so you can see here. We could have an inactive version, which is one that maybe we're making an enhancement to. We have the capabilities that's called hot process, that as things change, you can go into this actual process and change. So perhaps we wanted to change that threshold of the CFO's approval, and instead of making it 652, we wanted to change it to 752. We could go into this process by double-clicking on it, and go right to where the actual business rule was made and make a change to that business rule. So you can see here, very Visio looking like diagrams. You can see it looks exactly like that live view. But as we were talking about the hot change process, we could go into right here where we make the decision on the credit check, and we could see that we have a business rule over 700 or over 500, under and over. We could actually go in here and automatically approve and say, maybe we want to change this threshold to 800. We could go in here and say 800. Oops, we're going to say next. Go in here and we could say 800. And we could just sit here and we could say save. And what hot change allows you to do as soon as we say finish, the next process that comes through this, or any process that's ahead of this actual check, will now adhere to that now rule. And this is what we call hot process. Hot process allows you to dynamically change. The code does not need to be compiled. So the minute you save that change, you can actually do it. Now in real life, would we do this? Possibly on some things. If we're sending out an additional message or something, you might want to use hot change. If it's something that might affect further down the line, we're just going to change this back real quick so we don't forget. You can see we can say, no, we want to change it. What we would do is, as I said, we would version this and make the changes. Once we were happy with the changes, we would then sit there and make that the new active version. We're in the designer here. You can see we have many controls and things we can use over here. We have forms and messages and typical workflows. We have many connection points to Dynamics, creating entities, delete, event listeners, request, and multiple entities. Integration points down here, as I said, this is a key point of integrating and giving that governance control. We can have database listeners, email listeners, we can talk to REST, web, and other services. So, how do we add a new entity? So as you remember, we created entities. Well, there's two ways we can do it. The simplest way is we can go right up here and say create an entity. We click on here and we're going to be presented with a new block. We can then sit here at this split and click and control here and say quick bind. So when we come down from the order form, maybe we want to create another entity in another system. Creating an entity is simple as double clicking on it. Everything within Sequence Kinetics is wizard based. So we're going to use an existing CRM connection. So as you can see, we have a number of different CRM connections we connect to. We connect to both online and local versions of CRM. If we edit this, you can see we have the discovery service. We go out, give it credentials, we discover the organization, and we come back. And what this does is read in all the entities. If you have custom entities within your organization, we'll also read those in and allow you to manipulate and use them. Once we say next, goes on to the next process, we're going to be presented with a base entity. It's not associated right now to anything or any type of entity. We'll come over here, click off is null, and as we do this drop down, you will see that every entity within Microsoft CRM, Dynamics CRM, is available to you to actually be able to work with. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go here real quick and we'll just pick an account. Once we have the account, we'll expose it and expand it. You can see we're presented with all the information that's needed for the entity. Well, we know that everything within the entity is not needed. So as recommended, go into the actual entity within Microsoft Dynamics CRM and look at what the required fields are and fill out those information, or if there's other information. So maybe we want to add the account number because we know that's required. How easy is to add the account number? We can basically go and actually take the information that we've got off the order form, and we can go into the company details. And we're going to say right here, employees, and we're going to find, contact details. And we're going to sit here and we'll say contact ID, or actually let's go back up to here where we were, company details, and actually it wasn't there. We're going to pick contact ID, double click. And as you can see, once I double click, so all these information over here represent each one of these activities. So you can get to any data, including the metadata that's stored within Sequence Kinetics, that's going to allow you to be able to go back and do auditing, look up information, who touched it, when they touched it, and what they actually did. So you can see very quickly we can actually do that. If we wanted to add an address, we can click over here. Again, we can go in here, pick up information off of here, and company details. Maybe we have the city over here. And you can see, very simple. Click, and the information that was entered in that form that's stored in the back-end table will now be entered. Once we're done, we say finish, and that's all it takes to create an entity. Well, we also know that entities usually are some of them are complex. This is adding an account. Usually you have to add a contact or other information that's required. So what we've done is we're just going to get rid of this real quick. We built basically functions, or in this case, we call them sub-workflows. So what's going to happen is we go over here, and remember where we created the contact, we'll double click on this, and we say create contact, we say next. We can see that we've actually using a sub-workflow, and I'll show you this in a minute, called CRM 2000 function create contact. So what's happening is we're taking data from the main workflow and passing it into variables that the sub-workflow will require to be able to do the information. So you can see different things like business, phone, company, different decisions and things like that. So what's going to happen is the information is going to be passed from the main workflow, going to be passed into the sub-workflow or function, and the variables are going to be embedded into it. So let's look at that function. So basically we could just minimize this. And if we go here, you can see that out of the box, we provide you with a number of functions to be able to make your job a little bit easier. So you can see the basic functions such as account, address, contact, invoice, lead, opportunity, and quote are all pre-built. Now, keep in mind, if you have custom entities that you're reusing within your organization, you can also create a custom sub-workflow that you can reuse within your main workflow. Now, why do we create these sub-functions? Well, as I said, certain things need additional information to make them work properly. So in this case, you can see this looks identical to the other workflow. Again, your same things, activities. What we do is we pass control over here. We're going to create an account. Well, is there a contact for this account already? If not, we need to add the primary contact. If not, we need to update the relationship within Sequence, within the CRM system. Along that, we're also putting what we call compensation. We're actually watching what's going on in the back-end system. So if we try to call the CRM system and it's not up, we want to handle it in an intelligent way and reflect that back to the customer saying, currently we're experiencing difficulties, please try back in 10 minutes or so. In addition, we can also send out an intelligent email to the person governing and controlling the CRM system saying, we've just tried to have somebody update the system seems to be down and not working, and we can pass the error message back to them. So what this is allowing you to do is to make sub-functions that will associate the account with the primary contact, update the relationship, meanwhile having this governance control over the information and handling any errors intelligently instead of just blowing the system up. So you can see that each of these functions are pretty much the same, whether it's an opportunity, we can drill down into each one. And again, if you have custom entities, you can actually build these. In this case, we create the opportunity, make the decision whether we have an error or not, create the relationship, and then we end. So each of these reusable components. Again, the big thing with Sequence Kinetics is giving you reusability of components that you're building, thus giving you faster ROI when you're actually building out opportunities or building out workflows to be able to service your back-end customer. Again, we talked about the different versioning. As you said, we could go in here. You can make a version of this, which is a duplicate version. You could go in and start making and creating different information. How easy it is to create a web form? If we just double click on this, you can create this web form that was actually presented to the end customer, and you're going to see there's the first version of the form. We allow multiple views that we can use. You can see we have contact views. So then we have the contact information. We could sit here and say maybe along with name, last name, and email address, maybe we need to add a region. Very quickly we click, insert a row below. We could put a label over here. As you can see, we have all the rich controls you would expect. Put a text box over here. Rename this. We can say region. Click on this, give it a name. Once we give it a name, we can then assign it to the data model that's already assigned. Now, forms can be created off of, and we can bind it right there. And you can see that we've bound it. Once we save it, we now have that region. Just as easily as we put it in, if you decide you don't want it, we can remove it. So we can just say, click on it, and we can say delete, and we can remove it. So you can see, very easy to be able to build out web forms, very graphical. If you do want to get behind the scenes and add some JavaScript, as you can say, we have different ways of showing information. So up here we have a little JavaScript. You can put Ajax. You can put inline, or you can call out from an external file to be able to. So you can see you can get into the code. We have generated code from Sequence, and then we have code that's actually put in here. You can use ASPX code behind pages if you want for more functionality if you don't have it, but as you can see, we have a rich set of controls, we have required field validators, and other information. So that's how a form would get created. In addition to forms, we also have the emails that got sent out. Again, everything is wizard-driven within Sequence Kinetics. You can see we just click on this, we're given a subject body, all the rich text you would imagine, underlying font and context you can put into it. Very simple. You come in here, you're brought into this wizard again. You want to add something, we can go in here and add, and we go external. We could add some information if you wanted to from the actual account. We go to the order form. Again, it's going to be point and click, company details. We could get number of employees. So we could put a little thing in here, number of employees. And you have now this information. Again, intelligent messaging, very simple. You just say OK and save right there. The body of the message, same thing. Say OK. You're going to be brought into a wizard. Create the message. You can see again we're getting information out of here and passing it back intelligently. You can do formatting and things like that. Over here we have functions. You can see here's all our activities again to get your information. And again, functions to be able to convert data. We can use information that's passed from web services or things like that. User groups, strings, mathematical advance. So that builds the basic. Once we have the message built, we decide who it's going to go to. In this case, we're going to send it to a particular person. So we can pick from a particular person, or you have a number of other places you can use. We can use process roles, so based on who the creator, the recipient of a particular role is or activity. We can use SQL functions. We can send it to external users, or we can use expressions built from information you get within the system to send it. Once you set it up, you can send it to a number of different queues. We have a broadcast queue which goes to everybody and one person has to do it. We have a round robin queue that will determine who has the least amount of work and give it to that person. We have a direct queue, which is what this is. We're sending it directly to the system administrator to be able to do the approval. And we have a load balance queue that will look at who's got the most work or who has the least work and send the information to that particular person. So that's how, very simple. And then we have some properties. You can put attachments. If you had attachments within the actual person within the process, you could add the attachments. And we could do custom headers and dynamic information. Last thing I want to cover is down here is how we called out to the web service. So you remember here we called it credit check. So basically we can consume web services, we can have listeners, we can have consumers, we can have a workflow that's kicked off based on a web service listener that's looking. We're going to say next. We can create a new web service consumer or use an existing, since we already have this with using existing. So we use our existing one. If we look at it, basically it gives us our, as they refer to as a WSDL, which is a description of what the service has and what it needs to be able to call and what it returns. You can see we get all the different interfaces down here. So we're just going to say cancel. We're going to say next. And again, we pick our service that we want to call, and this we're doing a company credit check. And again, same type of information. We need a company name and number of employees. We're able to go over here and go into the information and look at the order, create the order. We have different information we can pick, and one click and load it over. As I said, you can see that a lot of this, we consider this low code because 80 to 90% of it can be done out of the box. Just some of the more complicated back-end integration points, whether it was into your CRM system or warranty system, may just need a little bit more information understanding what type of process you're trying to connect to. So just to review everything, I basically showed you how we get into the actual construction of the workflow, how a form is built and how we can enhance it. Talked about how we have the sub-functions, which are called as sub-workflows, to keep things in usable groups, reusable groups within it. Showed you how we call the web service. Showed you how a decision rule is made and how fast we can change that if we wanted to take advantage of the hot process within Sequence Kinetics. Showed you how intelligent messaging is built and how it's sent out. And again, the whole idea behind having Sequence Kinetics SCE's edition is to give you the business process management capabilities of having the governance control over it, being able to pass back and forth information between Sequence and CRM, getting external information, intelligent messaging, and processing, all while you have people working within CRM that don't ever go out of the actual system, including updated charts and graphs to give upper management or users where the process is, and all done in a very simple, low to no code fashion. Are there any questions?
This has been fantastic,
No
Mark. Greatly appreciate it.